I don't hear you.
There, my mic must have cut off when I walked into the other room. Sorry. So let's try that again. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on a Wednesday morning. Today we are going to be talking about the power drill. Power drill's been around since the 60s and 70s, but they didn't really kick off the do-it-yourself uh, explosion market until 2005 when Okay, let's try it this way. This mic died. On Wednesday mornings, I like to do a little thing where I pull a toy from the toy box and I draw it and we talk about it. We actually do this every day at 5:30 a.m. Texas time, so you may want to set that notification bell so you don't miss any of them. But today's random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier, which I've said several times now but the microphone keeps cutting off. Like the world doesn't want you to know about it. It's a conspiracy. Today's random object is a power drill. The first cordless power drill was developed in 1961. It had a nickel-cad battery. And it had to have a satchel. Battery was carried around in a satchel. And that satchel made it awkward because the battery had to be kept upright in the satchel. And so it made it awkward to use, and it was unpopular. But it was still a thing they were trying to push off onto at least the industrial market, because it allowed them to go places that they couldn't go where there was no power. So at least the industrial market, there was at least a slight industrial market use for it, but it was the moon landing that really gave it a boost, because the supposed moon landing, no, I believe in the moon land. I'm teasing. The moon landing, they needed a way to drill into rocks to get rock samples without the astronauts being spun around, because the rocks are stronger than the astronauts. If they were drilling into the rocks, the torque, Newton's law of motion, every action causes an equal and opposite reaction. The torque would have caused the astronauts to spin around, because the rock is going to stay still and the drill is going to stay still. That's going to cause the astronauts to spin around, unless the astronaut can brace themselves hard enough. But you're asking the astronauts to be stronger than the surrounding rock. So in order to defeat that or get past that, they had to come up with a way to make the one, they had to have a power source, so they created a battery for it. But two, they had to have a way to make it where it didn't torque on the astronauts, and that's certainly created the hammer drill. And that hammer drill was kind of the catalyst for all of the rest of the home market power drills, battery powered drills. So when people ask you, well, why are we going to space? What's the point of going? What's the whole point of space program? It's a waste of money. This is one of the many things that came from this and Teflon. One of the many things that came from the space program that we now use in our daily home use. Getting too carried away with the details here. I haven't even finished the composition. I may run out of space on my page if I'm not careful.
Ivy said she's glad they finally made a drill that can fit in her smaller hands.
Oh yeah?
And then Cassandra said she's glad they fixed the battery issue.
So yeah, the Makita made the first removable battery in 1978. Until 1978, these things were big and clunky, and the battery was in a satchel that you had to wear over your shoulder, and you had to keep the battery upright. If the battery tilted, it would spill. The materials would spill out and it would die. So you had to keep the battery upright to make it work. And Makita actually came out with the first replaceable battery. So if you can imagine, up until then, when it died, you had to take the whole mechanism and put it back on a charger. So in order to have a functioning mechanism, you had to have several of these things. A functioning operation, you had to have several of these things so that you could work nonstop. You'd have to have several of them, because as soon as one died, you'd have to be able to replace it with a freshly charged one.
Joe said he had a Makita Cadium drill.
Had or has? Because those things are neat. But it didn't really kick off in the personal market until 2005. It was the lithium-ion battery, the rapid charging lithium-ion battery, that made it useful to the average user, because these things, until then, they took entirely too long to charge. Even Makita's nickel cad battery that was replaceable took a long time to charge, and it made it where when it wasn't useful, you still had to have several. At least you had to have several batteries to make it work, to get through a day's work. So in 2005, though, they come up with the lithium-ion battery. He says his Opa had one, not him. He still has one. Sorry. I have too many pencil marks. My pencil marks are getting confusing, so I'm switching a pen. Too many pencil marks. You start to lose track of what you're trying to accomplish. Now these are a long ways. The first power drills altogether, that was developed in 1889, and it had two handles. You had to hold on to it with both hands to prevent the torque from ripping it out of your hands, and it had a chest plate that you pulled it into your chest, and the chest plate is what operated it, was its power supply. But it was in the 60s when Black and Decker gave it a trigger mechanism and made it handheld, where you could operate it with one hand.
You know, Ivy's talking about the different sizes they make so they fit her hands. I never really knew or paid attention to that. I didn't know they were in different sizes. Except, like craft size or something.
I never paid attention to it because I have fairly large hands. But yeah, there's different size power drills.
Of course, I've never had a reason to pay attention.
I know my dad always had to operate my dad always operated the drills and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's his area.
Still is.
It certainly is.
The hardest part about drawing this thing is knowing that it's a toy, and I have to stick to the toy features, like that whole drill bit thing, that exaggerated spiral on the drill bit, the simplified buttons. As right now, that is the hardest part of this process, is remembering that it's a toy, and not to go in and say, okay, that's not what a drill bit looks like, and try to draw a drill bit from memory, or to add in trigger mechanisms and flashing lights and greeblies.
Sandra says there's some that have a snake attachment for the drill bits.
Yes, oh yeah, so that you can hold it at this angle and drill at this angle. Yeah, so you can get into tight places. The snake attachment. Dun dun dun.
Morning, Adele.
Yeah, see, right here is where one of those areas where the pencil marks confuse me. Be all right. I think our toy is going to be just fine. Dun dun dun. Bosch also came out with a handheld cordless drill in 1978 in competition with Makita, with replaceable batteries. But Bosch would go on to make the hammer drill in 1984. They would come out to make a hammer drill that was battery powered, and in doing so, they increased the capacity of the nickel cad battery through chemistry and engineering. They managed to make the battery more efficient and faster charging and longer lasting, which really kind of drove the idea home that this might be a successful home tool that people could really use. And the difference, we talked about the hammer drill a minute ago that they used on the Apollo missions on the moon, on the alleged moon landing. I love the joke about the moon landing. They actually had Stanley Kubrick film the moon landing, so that they could convince everybody that the money was actually going to the moon. But Stanley Kubrick was such a stickler for realism that he insisted that it be filmed on location. I love that joke. They actually went to the moon just to fulfill Stanley Kubrick's requirement for realism. I just think that's a funny joke. I just saw a meme that middle-aged dads are sorted into 4 houses. Yeah, they're sorted into 4 houses, like the Adele. Adele says she just saw a meme about how middle-aged dads are sorted into 4 houses: Milwaukee, Makita, Bosch, and she can't remember the other one. Black & Decker. What's the green one? My dad and I are firmly in the green camp, whatever that is. I forget which one it is. I don't think it's Makita.
I don't want to say Rico.
Seems like it starts with an R though. I just know it's green. The green.
Ryobi.
Ryobi. Yeah, we're in the Ryobi camp. We're firmly in the Ryobi camp. Dun dun dun. Ivy says I'm in the misfit camp. If it fits in my hands, I want the one that fits in my hands. Ivy said that. Good morning, Claudia.
Sandra says she's a Team Ryobi, and Joe says Team Ryobi for the price of one DeWalt.
There you go. That's exactly why we're in the Ryobi camp. You know, and the difference is my dad and I are not professionals when it comes to this kind of stuff. We buy the tool that's going to get us through the job we're doing right now, and that makes a big difference on the home usage thing. Are you going to go pro? I mean, does it justify a $200 tool, or does it justify a $50 tool? And while you may want that $200 tool, are you ever going to use that $200 tool again? There's a running joke in my household about a biscuit joiner. I watched a New Yankee Workshop episode where he used a biscuit joiner to make a table. And I was going to make a table that could seat the whole family. And I was insistent that I was going to make this table, and I was going to use a biscuit joiner to do so. And I had to have a biscuit joiner. And so I went to Home Depot, and we saw at the time the biscuit joiners were, I don't know, $150. I'm just going to throw money out there because the point is at the time it might as well have been $10,000 to us. And so I didn't get it, but I really wanted it. And this went on and went on. And then one day we were at the Home Depot, and the biscuit joiners, there was a biscuit joiner on sale, and it was only about $50. And at the time we could afford the $50, and I convinced my beautiful young bride that it was a good expense because I was going to build this table. And I brought the biscuit joiner home, and I pulled it out and I played with it a little bit and hung it on a shelf on the wall for later use, and I never touched it again. Last time I saw it, it was melted to the wall because there was a fire in that house. But it hung on that wall for 15 years. 10 years anyway. It hung on that wall for 10 years. Never once touched it again. Never built a table. Never touched the biscuit joiner again.
Joe got a Harbor Freight biscuit joiner and used it one time in 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing hung on the wall from then on. And then I went to, from that point on, anytime I say that I want or need a new tool, my beautiful young bride will tease me. She said, "You're going to hang it on the wall next to the biscuit joiner?" That's been a running gag in our household for forever.
Claudia says she loves the biscuit thing but doesn't need it. Rick says he used DeWalt for decades, impressed with its quality.
Yeah, DeWalt is good stuff. If you buy a DeWalt, I mean, we have a DeWalt power drill and batteries that the batteries just went out on us, and we can replace the batteries, and I think that thing will last another 20 years. I'm convinced that thing's at least 20 years old, and if I buy new batteries, I'm sure it'll last another 20 years.
He says he has a DeWalt biscuit joiner.
And I see he had pocket jig screw set, I had that also. Because you've got to drill into the corners and hide the drill, hide the screw sets. Let me try this real quick. I'm sorry, that was Rick that said that. Rick said he was a carpenter before he was an artist, and so he has all the tools, and he has used the dog out of them. And that's that was my problem, is I would buy those tools and never use them, but I would be so happy to have them, Rick. I was just so I wanted to have them because it's cool as a man to have all the right tools to do whatever you want. And I was a shop worker, so most of the time, if I wanted something like that done, I could use the tools in the shop. I didn't have to buy anything. So, but I found myself in a situation where I was rarely using any tools. Once I built the studio in Oklahoma, Pamela came to the studio. Once I built the studio in Oklahoma, I got pretty adept at using all those tools, and I needed all those tools for that. But once I was done, they just kind of stayed there and didn't do anything. My vermilion is not vermilion enough for me today. I'm going to add a little yellow to it to make it a little brighter.
He says more power. You know that show.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Tool time. Home improvement. Tim Allen. Shoot, yeah.
Yeah, I would prefer that your dad get the more expensive ones, because you certainly don't limit him to what he purchases with his tools, because it might reciprocate and limit me.
Right. Well, the rule is you're supposed to buy the best you can afford, but truthfully, why? Why am I going to spend $400 on a set of tools that I'm going to use one time, if ever? Why wouldn't I spend $80 on Ryobi and save the other $120 that I would have spent on the DeWalt? Save that other $120 and use that to purchase better wood, better building materials, because the wood is going to last longer. The bench is going to last me longer. The table is something we're going to sit at for years to come. And so it's more important to have better quality wood than it is to have a higher quality tool that I'm never going to use again, that I may or may not ever use again.
Joe says he knows a lot of them living with grief. But his latest set of cordless he got from Harbor Freight and works amazing.
Yeah. I can't take my dad to Harbor Freight. He throws his arms up in the air and starts running down the aisles. And we can't find him.
Pamela says if Rick Nate they buy any cabinets or furniture, Rick gets the order and must feel it because he has the tools, which Pamela bought for you.
which Pamela bought for him.
Yeah, he said Pamela bought them for him. He said, good system, Pamela. Joe says his wife can go to Harbor Freight unsupervised.
Exactly. Exactly. We have to put a tether on my dad. It's like taking my kids to Toys R Us. You have to put a tether on them.
Last time Joe, when he came home with the bandsaw mill. Oh dear.
So our drills. Back to our discussion about power drills specifically. When Black & Decker put a trigger on these things and made them more useful for the average user, and then in 2005 adding the lithium-ion battery, in 2024 the power drill industry was valued at $5.1 billion. $5.1 billion. That's just the power wall. That's just the power drill industry. Once you start adding brushless motors to these things, though, and electronic controls, the new things, all of the new ones most of the new ones have brushless motors, so they don't heat up as much, they don't burn the battery as much, and they have sensitivity controls in them. They can tell what you're drilling into. So if you're drilling in a mahogany, they put more pressure into it. If you're drilling in a sheetrock, they don't put as much pressure into it. They don't use the battery as much. They have smart features on them now. The new ones have smart features on them now, so people can look at them on their phone and see and lock them out, so nobody can use them if they don't have the code. They can see their phone and see if they're on overload. They get notifications if the battery status is low. It's crazy. I can see if you were a project manager, if you were a construction manager or a contractor, I can see it being important to have tabs on all of you've got 20 drills on site, and you've got tabs on your equipment so that you know that your guys are charged up, so that you know that everybody's working, so that you know where your drills are, so that your equipment's where it's supposed to be. I can see that. But as a personal user, it has never once occurred to me to think I need a way to look at my phone to control my drill. As a matter of fact, I'm the exact opposite. I get mad when they require me to use my phone for anything other than calling people. Also, get off my lawn. I'm going to add back in some highlights. All right, let's ink this bad boy, especially since we're past time. Okay, and Rick says the DeWalt batteries are interchangeable with the other DeWalt tools. Almost all of them make their batteries interchangeable between each other, but there was a news story that came out that said that the Doge office was requiring that all of the different brands come together with a standard so that they could eliminate waste in the landfills and the waste of the lithium. And I mean, several news houses picked it up, and the search bot, when I sent the search bot out for fun and interesting facts about drills, that was one of the fun facts that the search bot came back with. But I know a secret about that. That's an April Fool's joke. And that made it to so many news outlets. And if I hadn't known it was an April Fool's joke, it might have made it into our discussion about how it was something in the works, because it was supposed to be done by January of 2026. But I happen to know that that was an April Fool's joke, and a good one. Because I can just imagine all of the contractors going, "Yes, it's about time. The government needs to do something. I have 50 different pieces of equipment. I've got to have 50 different batteries for every one. Blah blah blah." I can just see the contractors getting excited about that idea. But it was an April Fool's prank.
Chuck says you can jump your car with a 20-volt drill battery.
I can jump my motorcycle with it for sure. You have to be careful though; you'll blow your battery out. It's a 12-volt battery. But the do-it-yourself home industry, it's $5.1 billion just on drills alone. But once you expand that to other battery-powered saws and other battery-powered equipment, they've got compressors now. There's a handheld compressor with a computer on board that you can hook up to your car tire. You can program what you want the inflation PSI to be, and you hook it up, and it kicks in and kicks off to make sure that all the pressures are exactly where you want them. These things are, and that whole industry is a $627 billion industry. I'm shocked and amazed at the amount of money going into that industry. What is today? Today is the 22nd of April. So there is my version of it compared to the photograph. Now see, Caterpillar, I don't know Caterpillar. Claudia's talking about how Caterpillar's big for the companies there. I only know Caterpillar for the big heavy equipment like tractors and bulldozers and track hose. I don't think I've ever seen a Caterpillar drill. Ivy says it ought to be like Duracell. Any battery fits anything. But then you'd have a 5-pound battery for your little tiny drill that fits your hands, Ivy. They would standardize to one size, and the same drill that works on the 100-pound impact drill would have to work on the tiny drill that fits your hand. So if you require that kind of thing, yeah, it fits your hand, but you can't lift it. Joe says there are cat branded ones. I just don't think I've ever seen that.
I just think they might be DeWalt.
Okay, Claudia, Joe says that DeWalt and cat might be the same thing here in the States. So here is my version of it. Here it is from my perspective. So that is what I did this morning. And she says, no, they can make it A and AA and AAA and 9-volt and 12-volt. And tomorrow, what do we have tomorrow? Tomorrow, the suspense. I like to keep you in suspense for as long as I can. The suspense Oh, okay. Digging back into our fossil collection, we have a fossilized frog.
Chicken.
I know chicken, maybe, but it's a fossilized frog, and that would get any paleontologist super excited because frogs don't typically fossilize. Their bones are not typically ossified that way. Most of the time, they get really excited if they find even just a small fragment of a hip bone of a frog. What they really look for is frogs in amber, because that gives them more information. But tomorrow, we'll do this fossilized frog, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m. Texas time. So you're going to want to set your notification bell for that. It's not a dino chicken. It's a frog. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the comments on the drill. Thank you so much. Hey, guys, I really do appreciate you turning out this morning. Rick and Claudia and Ivy and Joe and Adele and who am I missing? I'm missing somebody. Cassandra was here really early today. Pamela? I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. It holds me accountable to my art practice and is often the only art I get to do. I truly do run down the stairs every day to spend time with you guys. Arting with my besties is the highlight of my day. Be sure and tune in tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. Joe, thanks for hanging out with us. Have a great day. I see you got to go. But we dance until somebody says they see me dancing, because that is how we know that the lag has caught up with the stream. It is how we are going to know that I don't get cut off mid-sentence. It is how it gives everybody a chance to say their hellos and goodbyes and share information. It gives you a chance to click the clicky thingies this way if you're on the horizontal, or this way if you're on the vertical. But the most important thing is that we don't get cut off mid